America faces a crisis of corporate capture of democratic government, where the economic power of corporations has been translated into political power with disastrous effects for people's safety and lives. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse warns that corporations of vast wealth and remorseless staying power have moved into our politics to seize for themselves advantages that can be seized only by control over government. Currently, the domination of big money over our public institutions prevents government from being responsive to Americans. This certainly is not a new phenomenon, but it is growing. The United States, like virtually all modern societies, is a nation of laws. Our founding fathers, in their aversion to tyrannical monarchies, saw fit to build the country on a so-called rule of law. The Constitution is not self-executing. It is given life and sustained by our institutions of government, by checks and balances, so as not to become the tyranny we overthrew in our revolution. James Madison said, "The people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it is from them that the constitutional charter, under which the several branches of government hold their power, is derived." And Alexander Hamilton observed that the purpose of government is to promote the general welfare. In short, laws and regulations serve as the backbone of a well-functioning society, ensuring order, stability, and the protection of individual rights and the common good. In the U.S., regulations play a vital role in various aspects of life, including governance, the economy, public safety, and the protection of individual rights. The United States, like virtually all modern societies, is a nation of laws. What's clear is that our founders believed government has a role to play in protecting the people, promoting the general welfare, and ensuring that the government is able to function effectively. Regulation is a tool to achieve these goals, and no one has promoted safety on America's roads and highways better than Joan Claybrook, who's been a champion for safety in the transportation industry as the former president of Public Citizen and former agency administrator of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. During her long career, she oversaw many successful advocacy campaigns, including playing a key role in persuading Congress to mandate airbags, as well as pushing measures to improve fuel economy and truck safety. The Honorable Joan Claybrook shares her thoughts in this exclusive interview on
The media plays a huge role in public policy decisions, and particularly safety. When they show people who have been harmed by a particular crash, and they say, this is not harming one person, it's harming hundreds of people, thousands of people in some cases, the public pays attention and they get mad because they don't see why people should be harmed in that way, particularly when it's unnecessary. And that was very important for getting airbags in cars, for example. It's very important for the keeping truck size and weight at a certain level. It's very important for having the truck driver fatigue issue get attention, because tired truckers are unnecessary and they shouldn't harm people. And the media gives great coverage to this, and it makes a difference. The three most important things I would like people to come away from this video understanding is, one, that the public can play a huge role in truck safety issues, and it has, and it should continue to. Lawyers who represent victims are really important in the whole mix of safety for a number of reasons. One, because they help the people who've been harmed. They help them enormously. They help them emotionally. They help them to get money, take care of them in the future when they can't go to work because they've been injured. And they help their families who otherwise would have to hand to it. Secondly, they get a lot of information that we don't have, we the public do not have. And so they know a particular make, model of vehicle is a problem, or a particular trucking company has many, many different claims against them. And so they can reveal that to us, and we can use that in our public advocacy. It's really critically important. Third, they are small businessmen in their own community. They have a lot of clout and power in their own particular state and city and town. And so they're a voice that the decision makers listen to. So there are many, many roles that they play. The public voice that comes through to members of Congress is, and to people in the Department of Transportation, you think they're not hearing it, but they don't like being criticized. They really hate being criticized. And so if you write letters to the editor and saying, my governor has, not supported truck safety, and use his name, he does not like his name in the newspaper, and he doesn't like you, an individual who has no special interest, telling him that. And he doesn't like everyone else to learn it. So it's really, really important to name names, tell it like it is, and make sure that the decision makers get a little bit of a punch in the nose every once in a while, and that will bring them, believe it or not, to your side, because they don't like being criticized. As the former head of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration regulating the auto industry, as the former president of Public Citizen, a Ralph Nader advocacy group for over 30 years, I have seen the politics of safety in its rawest form. And what this means is that the special interests, the trucking industry, the auto industry, and so on, they all come in with their own special deals. And they don't want this regulation, they want this regulation weakened. And so safety is like a little football that gets kicked around. And in the end, the only thing that makes a difference are the people. The people are the influence that makes a difference to the decision makers. I don't think there's anything more rewarding in life than trying to save other people's lives. And to me, that's the reason I've done this work. Because I know that there are remedies available. I know that they're not that expensive. I know that they're easy to implement, and I know they'll make a difference.
In this Insider exclusive Justice in America Network TV special, Justice in America, Lila Favela's story, our news team sits down with Maxie Share, founder and CEO of Maxie Share Law, to discuss how she successfully represented Lila in a mild TBI case as a result of her employer Swift Transportation's failure to safely protect her while working. Swift failed to provide a safe work environment and was negligent in properly maintaining, servicing, repairing their vehicles. The 8-day trial concluded, and after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury awarded a $10.65 million verdict. But because opposing counsel thwarted their obligation to provide the court-ordered insurance policies on appeal, the insurance carrier reached out and offered a settlement award inclusive of the interest incurred and cost of the court for a grand total of $11,113,094. Maxie has earned a reputation as an unyielding trial lawyer who repeatedly represents individuals and families against big companies and the Goliaths of the world, and repeatedly wins. She and her firm always believe the time to close highway safety law gaps and make a down payment on the safety debt that exists in every state is by passing laws that save lives, prevent injuries, and score financial wins for constituents. And her amazing courtroom skills and headline-grabbing success rate, just like in this case, continue to provide her clients with the results they need and the results they deserve. This is the Insider Exclusive live from El Paso, Texas. It is my great pleasure to introduce Maxie Share and Robert Collins to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Maxie, tell us a little bit about your firm. What do you specialize in?
So my firm specializes in trucking crashes that result in brain injury or death. I've had my firm, I've been a lawyer for a long time now, coming on 18 years. And I've been involved in all different sorts of historic and landmark verdicts. And about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I started my own firm, and that's called Share Law Firm. I was one of the first women in this country that got board certified in truck accident law. And I've tried tons and tons of truck crash cases. I also went to school before law school for neuroscience. So I wanted to study to be a brain doctor and switched gears and went to law school. And so I've kind of combined my experience and my expertise into one area. And that is, like I said, truck crashes that unfortunately result in wrongful death or brain injury. And I help people all across the country that have been involved in that situation.
So tell us about this case.
Lila Favela was working for Swift Transportation. She was a truck driver, and she was the breadwinner of her household. And she was on a dedicated route driving from New Mexico into Texas to do Walmart drop-offs. And this happened when she was hauling what's called a reefer trailer. Those are the refrigerated units that have the doors in the back that roll down rather than the kind that swing out. And this reefer trailer was hauling refrigerated goods during a time when it was a peak season for Walmart. And she had been working for Swift for some time. And when she was working for Swift, she occasionally had issues where these reefer trailer doors would get jammed on her and they wouldn't open up. And when she would call dispatch at Swift to ask for directives on how to handle it, they would tell her, jam it open, use your force. And that's what she was told every time she'd have this problem. So on this particular day, she picked up a load in New Mexico and drove it here to El Paso and went to the first Walmart. And just like before, several times before, her door got jammed. And she didn't call dispatch that day because they would always tell her the same thing, use your force, pry it open, jam it open. But she couldn't. And so she asked 2 Walmart employees to go help her. And they did, and they were able to get it open, and they unloaded, closed it back up, and she went to the second Walmart here in El Paso to do her second drop-off. And at the second Walmart, same thing, it couldn't open. And so she asked 2 Walmart employees to help her again. So they pried it open and put a little stick under the reefer trailer door. And when they left to go get the equipment they needed to unload, and she was walking into the trailer to get the numbers that they trained her to go get, the door fell off of its hinges. And it was 308 pounds. And it hit her on the head. And so goes the story of Miss Favela. After that, and what this case was about was really everything that happened next. She suffered a traumatic brain injury and she suffered brain damage that completely changed her life. And nobody believed her. Her employer ended up firing her. They rejected the attempts for her to go see a neurologist.
This is even before legal action is taken.
Yes. And doctors didn't properly diagnose her. The doctors that were all under the employee benefit plan that Swift had for her, they were non-subscribers. Swift did not have workers' compensation for her.
Let me ask you, why did Swift fire her?
Swift fired her because she wasn't showing back up to work.
She was injured.
She was injured, but they didn't believe that she was injured. And so they fired her for not being able to complete her job. They let her go. They didn't have workers' compensation like we had talked about.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, well, their stated excuse was that she wasn't coming back to work. But what do you do with someone who is significantly injured, particularly if you're not going to take care of them?
And the doctors that she's being sent to are saying there's nothing wrong with her.
Well, and the doctors she's being sent to are not workers' compensation objective third-party doctors. They're selected by Swift to see her, so they find nothing wrong with her. This is, again, the business model to make money and ditch safety. That's exactly what happened again.
So now she's fired. She's the breadwinner, but no longer the breadwinner. She comes to you.
She comes to me, and I've had the distinct privilege of representing Miss Favela from the beginning. And she was having issues with undiagnosed episodes where she was losing time and she was spacing out, or she was falling to the ground, or she was having issues where at one point she was in a parking lot and her husband had to literally hold her tongue, and no one yet had diagnosed her with seizures. And it ends up that the trailer door, when it hit her head, She suffered brain damage that, as a result, now she suffers seizures.
How do you document that what they're saying is valid?
I document what I'm hearing as a lawyer, but I'm not a doctor. And I don't know if one has suffered a traumatic brain injury. I just know what the symptoms are. And sometimes in the world of traumatic brain injury and brain damaged patients, they don't even know that they've suffered brain damage. They don't know what their symptoms mean. They just know that they're different. They just know that they feel different, that different things are going on. And sometimes those symptoms don't happen right away.
Right.
Sometimes they happen a year later. And how do you relate it back? And you know, there are all these questions, and they may go and tell their doctors, look, I've started to now lose my sense of smell. Or, you know, maybe I've got these headaches and they're not going away with Tylenol. Or, you know, I'm all of a sudden forgetting that I need to get groceries every week. And it used to be something I did all the time, and now I don't remember. But lots of doctors may not even notate that or diagnose it properly. And so these brain damaged patients may stop reporting it, or they may be so misheard or misunderstood by people that they just feel they're the problem. And so they stop talking about it. And it's a real problem. I mean, brain injuries are a real problem. And I alluded to it before. They're being missed by doctors. They're being missed by medical providers. They're being missed by lawyers. And they're being missed by the patients, the clients, and their families themselves. So in answer to your question, I don't have doctors. And I'm not a doctor. I just spend time with clients to see what's going on. And they have to know what their symptoms, their changes are. If they don't have them, they don't have them. Thank God if they don't have a brain injury. But if they've got symptoms, they need to be properly dictated, right? They need to give those symptoms to the doctor, and then a doctor can decide what imaging needs to be done, what therapy needs to be done, what treatment and course of action, if any, needs to be done.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because this became a big issue.
Huge.
The defense wanted to send her to specific doctors, correct? To be analyzed.
She was under what's called an employee benefit plan. And under that plan, she has to go to their selected providers. In this case, it was Concentra. And so she kept going to Concentra, but she was also going to the emergency room because Concentra was not giving her proper diagnoses, and she'd get home.
And they're paid for by the defense.
Yes.
As a replacement for workers' compensation.
So that's a conflict of interest. So my question, and I remember reading, the defense filed a motion to compel a physical examination. They wanted it videotaped or something like this, right?
We wanted it videotaped. So this is another scheme that happens in our cases across this country. In Miss Favela's case, she had medical providers. She had doctors who took Hippocratic oaths to take care of her and do her no harm. And those doctors sent her for imaging, which confirmed she had brain damage. These are her treating doctors who have obligations to her forever. So it's not expert versus expert, it's a scheme. On the other side, they go hire a doctor who has not taken a Hippocratic oath to her, who is not her provider, and has no obligation if they get it wrong. And they just do a records review, and they get paid a lot of money to come in and say, she wasn't injured at all, and if she was injured, it would have recovered in 2 to 3 weeks. So she's a malingerer doing this for secondary gain, and it's not real.
Or it was a pre-existing condition that she already had. And we see this in every case over and over and over, that the same doctors give that same opinion without ever even seeing anyone.
When you say these doctors did not take a Hippocratic oath to her, may I suggest that doctors take a Hippocratic oath to all patients, whether they're their patients or anybody else's patients, to do no harm, to make the best decisions for them?
You may suggest it, but you would be inaccurate. In these cases, when the defense hires an expert, they have no obligation to the plaintiff if they get it wrong. Their client is the defendant that pays for their services. And they come in and either do just a records review and never see the plaintiff and then say, all the treating providers are wrong, and this is all malingering and secondary gain or pre-existing, like Robert said, or they ask for and they call it an independent medical examination. But that's a misnomer. It's not an independent examination at all. It is a defense medical examination, and that's what they requested here of Ms. Favela. So they asked for a physical examination and a neurological examination. And the court in this case allowed them the opportunity to do the physical examination. But I asked the court for protections, and I showed the court how there are affidavits amongst affidavits from doctors all over this country who are treating providers who have watched videotapes, for example, of these defense medical exams. And there's one example where Dr. Oregon Hunter has watched 400 of these videotapes where the defense examinations have been videotaped and they know it. And he has sat through and watched all of these and found that of 400, guess how many, even when they're being videotaped, guess how many of those ones those doctors falsely reported? Guess how many?
100%.
100%, all 400.
That's why we demand videotaping.
And we got it. We got it in this case, and we got the accommodation of being allowed to be present while it happened. It's not independent.
So this case comes down to persuading the jury about the truth.
Every case comes down to that.
Because it was an 8-day trial.
Yes.
And the jury deliberated for 5 hours, I think, right? And they awarded $10.65 million. Okay. So obviously you both did your great job persuading the jury. Where do you know, when you're in the courtroom, do you see how the jurors are picking up on how the defense is trying to slant or influence or give you half the picture?
You think you do. I mean, after hundreds of jury trials between Maxie and I guess probably almost 75 years of experience of trying lawsuits, we still don't have a clue. But yes, you begin developing a relationship with the jury during the jury qualification process, and you kind of get a feel for how they are reacting to the things that they hear.
Now, there's an extra twist to this story in that the defense would not show their insurance policy.
This case was really interesting because it was my first case that went all the way through verdict as a firm owner. So this is the first one. And in El Paso, there has not been an 8-figure verdict since the mid-90s. That was my dad's verdict in the mid-90s, and there has not been an 8-figure verdict here since. And Robert and John Camillus, our co-counsel, and I all set out because Miss Favela rightfully deserved justice in this case to try to make that happen for her. And we did receive the first 8-figure verdict in El Paso since the mid-90s in this case. Throughout the process of this case, the defendant was underestimating Miss Favela and me and us. And they even sent emails and made comments showing that in court and in emails. And what we found after this verdict came in, and I'll tell you, Steve, we went to mediation after the verdict happened. We were all in the mediation, and Swift ended up paying more than the verdict rendered. But after they paid it, we were alerted as a necessary party to know about what happened to the fact that there was a federal lawsuit brought between insurance companies and Swift's agents for never disclosing this case properly to the insurance company. And in what we did to work up the case, there were several different types of correspondence back and forth trying to get the insurance. And we kept getting told that this is a self-insured policy. There is no insurance.
Which was a lie.
Which was not accurate. And after the verdict came in, the insurance companies that could have been there all the way and that listed in the federal case that they would have liked to participate, but they were never notified of this claim, sued for it.
That is interesting. The verdict was $10.65 million. What they eventually ended up paying was about $500,000 more. Why?
Because of Maxie's share and her dogged approach to never giving up.
But this was offered by the insurance carrier, right?
Yeah, in the end, not because they wanted to. is, part of their strategy, and it's in denying the insurance coverage, for example. This whole thing is the business plan. The business plan to deny, delay, depose is throughout all the way to the end in denying even that there's insurance coverage. They lie about that because they don't want you to know how much coverage there is. They want to be able to misrepresent it to you to get you to settle for less. We don't listen to them. We don't take their lies at face value. We know that their business model is to lie, cheat, and steal at every opportunity and to delay, deny, and defend everything. So we go to verdict. And that's what we're known for, and that's what we're going to do in every case.
Good for you. We have your clients here today, Lila and her husband, Jose Del Rio. Let's bring them on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Lila Favela and her husband, Jose Del Rio. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to be here today. I know you went through a lot. And we've already discussed the case with your lawyers, on camera. But I want to ask you personally, how has your life changed since that incident where that 300-pound door fell on you?
My life has changed dramatically, especially when I look at who I was before the incident and who I was after the incident. There's a certain level of independence that I grew up with, a certain sense of self-sufficiency that I had that was ripped away very quickly, very suddenly, and learning to cope with that was the hardest part of everything. Watching my kids lose a mom, watching my husband lose his wife, there's too much. There's too many things to go through to just say, yeah, we'd be here forever if I mentioned to you every little thing on how it changes.
And this is required, Jose, you to adjust to, correct?
That's right.
Jose, what type of changes have you seen in your wife and in your relationship with her over the years since this incident?
I mean, there's been multiple. I mean, she went from being a independent woman, providing for her family, to doing half. I mean, she was the breadwinner. She was truck driving. She was coming home, and I was taking care of things in the house. But from that incident, she was no longer providing for us. Or even at home. Yeah, I mean.
So have things gotten better? The accident was 2017. We're 8 years later.
We've learned to go around the situation of her injuries. I mean, I'm still doing a lot of things at the house. I mean, of course, I don't have to worry about the bills or her medical expenses, thanks to Maxie and thanks to the case. But I mean, her life has still changed. I still have to drive her around, do stuff around the house where she can't. And yeah, I guess in a way I'm her provider in that aspect.
So, Lily, you don't drive?
It's very rare that I drive. I normally drive my kids to school, but other than that, if he's home, he's home. He's driving us to the store, back and forth. You asked me earlier a lot of these things that changed and what changed, and I think a lot of people don't really think about the same things that we think about.
While this case was going on, the defense was kind of harassing you. They were following you around. Tell a little bit about that.
The defense didn't just follow me around. If I was part of the case, that would have, okay, fine. Everybody has its tactics, and let's not pretend like that's not what our justice system has allowed them to do. But I think where it started becoming extremely frustrating for me and there were a lot of times that I wanted to quit. Because when they started recording my kids, And they would send me videos of me being with my children and my children at the bus stop.
They would send you videos.
Yes.
How would they do that?
They sent it over to my lawyer, but essentially it's a very surreal and very creepy.
Okay. Were there comments with the videos? Like, she isn't hurt, she's pretending.
It was a lot of silence. I mean, some of those videos, it was me bending down to grab some groceries from a trunk. And all of a sudden that turned into, well, she's not hurt because she's bending down. And so we have to establish a real quick definition that there's a big difference between being hurt and being maimed completely. And yeah, I was still moving, but I mean, just because I'm sitting here and I'm talking to you, it doesn't mean that I don't have a blaring migraine right now. You just learn to deal with it and you learn to cope. And I'm a parent, and it's not okay for my husband to be seeing that. And it's sure as hell not okay for my kids to be seeing that, but they still saw it. You know, my oldest comes to me a lot, and he's in his teenage years now, which makes it very difficult to have to answer the questions where he's cognizant enough to understand that there was a difference between the mom he was born with versus the mom he has now. And so hearing the question of, Mom, you don't come to the park with us and run around anymore. Mom, where's your bike? Mom, why can't you throw the football anymore? Mom, why do you have to sit in the shade? It's a lot. It's a big difference. And I don't know if not having Jose around, I would be able to do the same things. He took over a lot of what's me, because I was a mom. Before I was a truck driver or a wife or even a woman, I was a mom. And losing that aspect of it and having to watch, my husband was now the one rolling around with my kids on the ground, and he was now the one throwing the football, and mommy was sitting down under a tree in the shade watching them play, and essentially living very vicariously through my husband. And it was hard. It's like watching your life from the sidelines.
Are you able to work on those things and try to get more involved?
I do get more involved, and I think it's a little less so in reference to throwing the ball or any of that stuff. I think I'm more involved in things that I'm instead of me being able to play soccer with my son, I'll put him in a soccer team and I'll be the parent that's cheering him on. Instead of me sitting there and, you know, arguing with my 13-year-old or, no, you can't go here, you can't do that, we can't go here anymore. Now it's more so, hey, look, Mom, I like the coding. Look, I want to be on the VR. I want to create my own app. So I'll be there and I'll help him get through whatever he needs to get through. And we're researching stuff together. And I had to learn to be involved differently than what I was used to.
One final question. What do you think about the job that Maxie's firm did for you guys?
That was amazing. It was more so than just the legal things. You know, there are a lot of lawyers out there that are smart. There's a lot of them that they understand, they know their job, they're ruthless, they're whatever. But I think with Maxie, it's a little different because she didn't just look at us as a case, and she didn't look at us like money or this is a way for me to win through it. She saw me. She didn't just see me, she saw Jose and she saw my kids. And there were so many times that I wanted to quit, where I would tell her, Maxie, I can't do this anymore. I have to quit. We have to stop. I have to get a job. I can't afford this. No, just breathe. Breathe, look it through, look at your finances. You need me to help you look it through your finances. You know, nobody else is going to care about that. Maxie, I can't do this. I can't look at Jose in the face anymore and be okay with this. And she would remind me that there was a reason that this was happening. And I had to stay strong. There's a lot of people out there that get hurt, and a lot of people that don't say anything because we're taught not to say anything. We're taught not to fight back. We're told that the big companies are going to win. And it takes a special human being like Maxie to sit there and tell you, you can win. You just need to be patient. You can win. Just wait.
Well, she won, didn't she?
Oh, she did. She showed up and she took it.
Well, I want to thank both of you for spending time with us today. And we hope life is better for you.
Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Roger Allen. And before I introduce him, I want to let everybody know he is the #1 safety trucking expert in the country. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Roger, you are an expert. Why?
I spent my whole life in this business, trucking industry. I started working in the trucking industry in 1959. I was a junior in high school. My father passed away, who was a terminal manager for a trucking company. I immediately went to work for my aunt and uncle, who owned a trucking company that my great-great-grandfather started back in the 1900s. As I said, I was a junior in high school. I worked full-time, finished high school. And since that time, there's really not a thing I haven't done in the trucking business, including driving trucks over 2 million miles, owning my own companies, general manager, safety directors. I've been a school bus driver, driver-trader, tour bus trader, safety director. It's been my whole life.
Let me ask you this question. Here you are at the later stages of your life, and you're still active in making sure that the roads are safer from truckers, from the 80,000-pound torpedoes that are going down the road. Why are you doing that?
Truckers now, drivers, and trucking companies, they think they own the road. They don't care if people get hurt. They don't want to take responsibilities for what they've done wrong. That's why I do what I do. I want to make the road safer. And if I can save one life or one person from getting injured, then I think I've done something.
Do you see the transportation industry becoming more safer or less safer?
Over the years, it's not getting any safer because nobody wants to follow the rules. Trucking industry is a quick buck for the right people that just want the buck. That's all they care about. The people that really care are going to follow the rules and regulations, and it's going to make it safer. But that's not the way our world is now.
If you could change one thing in the trucking industry right now, what would it be?
Everybody agree to do the safest thing, follow the rules and regulations. That would be it, sir, because that will make things better.
Okay, what do you see truckers doing today that make the roads unsafer?
Whoa, that covers a lot of stuff. Not doing proper inspections, not carrying, driving too fast. It's just like they've moved the speed limits up for 80,000 trucks, 75, 80 mile an hour. It's going to take 3/4 of a mile to stop one of the things at that time, or over half a mile. It takes longer to accelerate, a lot longer to stop and turn, because they're 8.5 feet wide. They're up to 75 to 80 feet long. They take up so much room, and you don't stop them. And the brakes and everything are not made for the speeds that these trucks travel nowadays.
You have been an expert on many cases, haven't you?
I've given over 1,400 depositions. I've testified live at trial over 130 times in state and federal courts all over the country.
So you're the man, right?
That's what I've been told, and but I love what I do, and as long as the good Lord will let me, I'm going to keep doing it.
Do you see a truck in heaven waiting for you to drive?
I would hope so. I loved every minute I drove trucks.
It's a different career. And I want to thank you very much for your input on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.